There is so much nonsense going on today. There's so much low-hanging fruit for me to pick. But I have to pick something. I have to focus, or else I will just be all over the place. So I want to focus primarily on the so-called retaliation strike waged by the U.S. Air Force against so-called Iranian-backed groups in Syria. I saw the news of this today as I was at a fast food place, and they had Fox News on the TV. And Fox News was talking about how finally America struck back against those terrible Iranians who have been attacking us in the Middle East. And they had a quote up there from the Pentagon that said self-defense. Self-defense. I mean, the Pentagon should not even be allowed to use the word self-defense. And frankly, if I were a member of Congress, I would introduce a bill on the House floor today saying explicitly the Pentagon is never allowed to use the phrase self-defense in reference to itself in public communications, because there is no case that I can think of in my lifetime in which that phrase would be appropriate to describe Pentagon actions. Not even after 9/11, because after 9/11, who were the first people that the Pentagon attacked in so-called self-defense? Oh, that's right, it was the Taliban, who didn't attack us on 9/11. So in my lifetime, all U.S. military operations have been offense, not defense, including this so-called act of self-defense. In reality, what happened was the United States, their bases in Iraq, which strictly speaking are legal because the U.S. overthrew the old Iraqi government that didn't want them there, and the current Iraqi government does give the U.S., although their status of forces agreement expired, but I assume by this point, I'm trying to give them as much credit, as much wiggle room as possible. I'm trying to be as generous to the U.S. military as possible. I believe the U.S. has reached some sort of formal agreement, so their troops are technically allowed to be stationed in Iraq by the Iraqi government, even though that Iraqi government, is one that was installed by the United States. Let's set that aside. No matter how they got there, there's a current government in Iraq, and it allows the U.S. to be there. So these troops that are legally stationed in, legally occupying Iraq, were attacked by some Iraqis who don't want them there. Some Iraqis, I guess, shot off a few RPGs at U.S. bases. Several Americans have been injured, though from the political report I just read, none have been killed, but they've been injured. And apparently 2 of them had to be transferred to, the hospital in Germany for medical attention. So in response to what, if you're being as generous as possible to the United States, is an actual act of aggression against U.S. troops in Iraq, because, in the most generous way possible, the U.S. presence in Iraq is legal, even though I, as an American citizen, would not want them there. And so, strictly speaking, these troops were minding their own business until they were attacked by local Iraqis. The U.S. response then to those attacks, to that act of aggression by Iraqis, if you want to call it that, what was it? Did they bomb a village in Iraq where these attacks originated? Did they send in special forces to take out some sort of anti-American resistance group in Iraq? No. In fact, they didn't do anything in Iraq. What they decided to do was bomb Syria again. Oh, look, America and Israel are bombing Syria. It must be a Tuesday. This is the so-called act of self-defense against Iran, Iraqis attack Americans in Iraq because they don't want Americans in Iraq. And so we blame Iran and bomb Syria. What kind of Rube Goldberg logic is that? Now, people are going to come in and say, whoa, there were attacks on Americans in Syria, too. You know, the Syrians were attacking Americans, and so this is still self-defense. It's like, The Americans are not welcome in Syria. The American presence in Syria is an illegal invasion, always has been. Everyone recognizes that. Not even the U.S. Congress authorized U.S. troops to go into Syria. I remember the debates back in 2011. After the CIA started the Syrian civil war, they expected Obama to be able to send in troops, and they couldn't get it through Congress. So they did it illegally, and they did it covertly. So it was so covert that even the U.S. President Trump, who tried to pull these troops out, who had been there for so long, they lied to him, and they secretly kept them there. They told him, oh yeah, we got the troops out. But setting that aside, the country who these American troops, who they invaded, they're not welcome there. The Syrian government has never permitted American soldiers to set foot on their soil. These American soldiers are illegal immigrants. They're an invasion force. That is what they are. And so when Syrians fight back against an invading army, you can't then bomb Syria and call that self-defense. I haven't been so tempted to use profanity on this channel in recent memory. At all this year, certainly. But this is the most dishonest gaslighting that I have witnessed from the U.S. military establishment in, I can't think how many years. And it's not that there haven't been bigger, more important lies. This is just the most blatant and just false on its face. There's not a single true statement anywhere throughout this narrative. They're not just twisting the truth a little bit. It's 180 degrees different from what they're saying. How do we live really struggling to keep the profanity lid on? Because you know what? When you use profanity, it doesn't make your argument any stronger. It doesn't. I don't think it even makes it emotionally, more convincing. It doesn't do anything. It just, it's just linguistic filler. But anyway, we live in a world where an invasion force gets attacked by the people they're invading. Those people then get bombed. That is self-defense. The invasion force bombs the natives, and that is self-defense, because those invaders were unrightfully attacked, I guess, unprovoked. Yet random kid, 0 to 12 years old, he gets killed because his apartment collapses because he was caught up in an Israeli-controlled demolition because some guy on the third floor, 2 floors below him, once liked some pro-Hamas post on Facebook or something. And so Israel demolishes the entire apartment building while everyone's asleep to take out one guy who liked a pro-Hamas Facebook post one time. And those people all had it coming. But a few Americans get injured because the people that they're invading actually fight back. They actually shoot back. After over a decade, 12 years now, Syria's been besieged by the United States, covertly and overtly. Those people fight back, and the Pentagon whines and cries and plays the victim. And the U.S. military wonders why they have trouble recruiting new meat puppets to join up. The only thing meaningful that you could do by so-called serving in the U.S. military is die a horrible death so that the generals and the politicians can wave your bloody shirt around to justify giving themselves more money. Look, this 18-year-old kid from Tuscaloosa was killed by pro-Iran Syrian terrorists, and so you need to increase our budget so that we can, wage attacks of self-defense. And you need to increase my rank. You need to make me a 4-star now. How many 4-star generals are there now? Like 1,500 or something ridiculous. They've all got these jackets adorned with a million different badges, like they're friggin' Idi Amin. Remember when Idi Amin was a joke? Remember when Idi Amin made people bow to him to ask a question? He would make them get down on their knees for press conferences. And we said, wow, what a clown. Well, guess what, folks? The United States is ruled by 10,000 Idi Amins. Those Hindus had it coming. The forced ethnic cleansing and seizure of all their property, that's just self-defense. Don't you think that Uganda has a right to defend itself? Do you think that Ugandans have a right to exist? India has this great big country, all for them. And yet Uganda, they have to stink up Uganda. Uganda is for Ugandans. No Indians allowed. The Indians have a great big country they can go back to if they want to live. But they can't live here. This is where we are. Remember how the West lambasted Idi Amin for that? Remember how they excoriated Mugabe for seizing the property and the land of all the white people? Well, specifically the white farmers. Certain white people enjoy a comfortable life in Zimbabwe to this day. There are certain white allies of the regime who somehow have been able to navigate the political landscape and, maintain their status. But the major landholders, even the small landholders, they were all cleansed from the land. Their land was seized. And it was redistributed to the in-group. That was terrible, we were told by the Western press. Yet, when it comes to Israel, is there some pushback of Israel from the Western press? Yes, but not in the right way, not enough. It's complicated. They're not as sycophantic about Israel as they were about Ukraine and Zelensky. In fact, I think it's the public, it's the pundit class, the commentators, who are so much worse on the issue of Israel. And of course, they're all terrible, down to a head on this ridiculous situation with Syria. Assad derangement syndrome was around long before so-called Trump derangement syndrome. So anyway, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.